Hello? Oh, hi. Okay, buongiorno. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm David Kaplan from the Global Investigative Journalism Network. I think we're not such good investigators. It took us a long time to find this room. We were wandering in the rain. I think we're all pretty wet. Thank you all so much for coming. I know it's getting late in the day and it's been a busy time here at the festival. We're really glad you joined us. We've been working hard at GIJN to, Pavla, hi there. A lot of friends in the audience we haven't seen for a long time. We're really glad to be here. GIJN's doing, this is the first of 3 sessions we're doing at the festival. Tomorrow at the same time at 5 o'clock we're doing a workshop on, we call it the business of investigative journalism. It's about sustainability and survival practices. GIJN is a membership organization. We have 177 members in 76 countries around the world. A lot of them are small investigative journalism centers. In Slovenia, in the Philippines, in Zimbabwe, and we work to make sure that they are sustainable. So we teach best business practices, fundraising techniques, membership models, and we'll be talking about all that tomorrow. On my left is GIJN's Arabic editor, Majleen Hassan, a native of Jordan, but we're lucky to have her near where I'm based in Washington, D.C. But Maj came up through the Jordanian media and worked with Arij, one of our members, Arab reporters for investigative journalism. She's one of 7 regional editors that GIJN has around the world. Maj, you already did your first session today?
No, tomorrow.
Tomorrow on local
about,
reporting.
Yeah.
When is that?
It's, I think, from 2 to 3.
2 o'clock tomorrow, so look for Maj on local reporting. Maj was the first person in Jordan to sue under their Freedom of Information Act and caused quite a stir there. And then on my far left, I don't know if that's political or not, Alistair? It might be. Alistair Otter is a native of South Africa. We started working with him at our Global Investigative Journalism Conference last year, which we held in Johannesburg. We do it in a different country every 2 years. And Alistair was so good on helping us on everything digital that we kept asking him back. We finally hired him because GIJN's been growing quickly. We started in 2012 with $30,000 in seed money, and our budget this year will be about $1.5 million. And we didn't have anybody doing IT. So Alistair came to the rescue, started doing security and IT maintenance, helping us figure out how WordPress works and all kinds of things. Well, it also turned out Alistair is something of a genius at data visualization. And he's been winning all these top awards in South Africa doing very innovative data journalism stuff. So we've hired the other half of him now to be our first staff trainer, and he's been going around the world teaching people from his digital toolkit, and you'll get a look at that today. So we have about 18 staff in 12 countries. We have 8 regional editors who act as our regional representatives. GIJN, as I shall show you, is in 8 languages every day. I used to run ICIJ, the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, and we had an exciting time expanding ICIJ's methodology into, I think we were running projects in 20 countries, and we thought this is pretty amazing, no one's done that. And of course then my successor came and expanded it into 80 countries and did the Panama Papers. So we like to think we had a hand in setting up the methodology that's based on. Well, one of the things I was trying to do at ICIJ was provide a base for not just investigative journalists who were part of ICIJ's projects, but who are part of a global community of people trying to do in-depth, serious reporting. We didn't have an organization. There's no union, there's no trade association, or there wasn't. So when I left in a big management dispute, you can ask me about that later, ICIJ has now gone independent, which is good. When I left, we looked around, my colleagues and I, at how can we set up an independent base for the world's investigative journalists? How can we provide them the tools and resources, opportunities, even funding to help the world's muckraking journalists? There really wasn't one. There's one for health journalists, there's one for science journalists, but there's not one for what we call the special forces of journalism. These are the Navy SEALs and Green Berets and SAS of journalism, the people who are the best trained, who go after the toughest targets and take the biggest risks. There was no one worldwide supporting that. There were lots of national organizations doing great work. So we approached what was then a loose network, the Global Investigative Journalism Network, of about 45 nonprofit groups that had grown up around the every 2-year Global Investigative Journalism Conference. And I'd been part of all the conferences from the first one in 2001. We knew we wanted to create a hub. We were getting lots of requests from around the world. People wanted help with reporting. They wanted help on fundraising. They wanted to know how to start an investigative journalism center. They were having trouble with their bosses who were corrupt. They were having trouble with safety and security. The list was huge. So we set up, with the network's permission, we created a provisional secretariat in 2011, and then it just took off. We doubled in size over the next 3-4 years, and what was a couple of people, Gabriella Manuli, my Argentine deputy, who's based in Budapest, and I, we now have, as I say, 18 people. We'll have our global conference this year. This year it's in Hamburg, Germany. You are all invited. We try and keep costs as low as possible. I think it's 300 euros for 4 days with food and receptions and Pulitzer Prize winners, European Prize winners, the founders of data journalism. I mean, it's really a terrific faculty we've accumulated over the years. So let me, have I got a clicker to kind of take us through? Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick overview of GIJN with some images, and then I'll turn it over to Alistair to go deeper into some of the tools and techniques that we train on. And then Maj is going to talk about what she does with our other regional editors around the world. Every day we are out on Twitter and Facebook, and in Chinese we're on Weibo and WeChat, we're on WhatsApp and Telegram. We're trying every platform, depending on the culture and the community, to get the word out about investigative journalism. So we've accomplished our first goal, and that was to set up a true global hub for the world's investigative journalists. If you're looking for a place to find out what's going on, check out our Twitter and Facebook feeds. You'll see cool stuff every day. Here's a look at our membership. You have to be a nonprofit or the equivalent media organization to join GIJN. It's just how we grew up. We service everybody, commercial media, citizen journalists, NGOs, but to be part of our governing body, you have to be a nonprofit. That's who has really helped spread investigative journalism and data journalism so globally in the last 15, 20 years. It's been the training institutes, the NGOs, the nonprofit investigative reporting centers. Every 2 years, we do our global conference. The last one had over 1,200 journalists from 130 countries. We stepped in. We have regional conferences by our members all over the world. Data Harvest, the European conference, is coming up next month. There's an Africa conference held in Johannesburg every year. There's one in Latin America called Colpian. The only region that didn't have an annual conference or any conference was Asia. So we stepped in with our members, and we've done 3 conferences there now that keep getting bigger and bigger. And don't let anyone tell you Asians don't like investigative reporting, or there's some Asian model that doesn't like openness and watchdog reporting. They love it, and we're growing rapidly. Here's a look at our Asian conference page, and we had almost 400 people from about 35 countries in Seoul last year. Really exciting. Let's see, that says 170,000. Well, we're up to 200,000 followers. We had about 1,200 in 2012. So this thing is growing at about 40% a year. We have tapped into a demand that even surprised us. Despite all of the problems that our community has, the lawsuits, the intimidation, the violence, the threats, the lack of resources, the lack of money, despite all of that, we have more journalists doing better investigations in more countries with better tools than ever before. And that keeps us going every day. Our staff each morning aggregates what's going on in investigative reporting in 8 languages. And a lot of it's really awful. We're getting our asses kicked almost everywhere, even in places we thought we were safe, like Western Europe and North America. But on the other hand, we have all these journalists doing incredible work, and our ranks are growing. That's really encouraging to us. Let's see. Here's a look at some of our different languages. Maj will talk about that in a second. When we started up, we began getting a lot of requests for help, and at first we just thought it was, it was interesting, and we began keeping a spreadsheet of all the requests. Now it's become a major part of what we do. Last year, our staff responded to 1,600 requests for assistance from over 100 countries. And they're on everything. The biggest requests are for help reporting, but people need a lot of help on distribution and promotion. They ask for help on safety and security. There's academics trying to do research. There's citizen journalists trying to find the right tool for the job. So our staff spends a lot of time responding to these requests. We built a resource center, which I'll show you a bit on, to start indexing all of the tip sheets and reporting guides that people at our conference were presenting and that our staff was putting together. Here's a look at it. If we have time, I'll get online and show you a bit more. It's just a goldmine of stuff. We're busy now digitizing it, so when we're done, and we'll roll this out in Hamburg in September, it will look like a clothing catalog where if you search plane spotting, you'll come up with an image and links to plane spotting groups and all sorts of cool stuff. There's guides to how to follow shipping, how to follow human trafficking, how to follow the money, how to verify photos and videos. You can see, here's some of the reporting guides what we have. We tried to create it so it's not one-stop shopping, but first-stop shopping. The problem for too many journalists is, most of us work on deadline, and we just don't have enough time. So typically a journalist will Google something, and after the 3rd page, you give up. Well, we're going 30 pages into Google, and we're going to other sources, and we're putting together these guides so that you can come here first. Go ahead and keep Googling. In fact, look at our advanced Googling section. But start looking, if you're working on any of these issues, and we're adding more every week, this could save you a lot of time and help you in source development. Here's our website. It's visited by journalists in 100 countries per day. We have a new story every day. We look at it as an international journal on investigative journalism. We pay for stories, so if you have something interesting, we're really keen on tips and tools, on how-to stories. Tanya, our managing editor, is here. Say hi, Tanya. If you have any story ideas, ask her. Anything you want to add, Tanya?
Yeah.
There's a little thing on the end here about that says right for us that says what kind of stories that we're looking for. That's, yeah, I love stories from around the world that have those residents.
You can see the lead story on this screenshot is about using satellite imagery. That's a guide we did last year that's been really popular, and we'll have a whole panel of people from satellite imagery companies at our conference. For example, there's a new generation of satellites that are being launched that are low orbit and high resolution, and the next stages are going to cover the entire Earth 24/7. As journalists, we need to be ready for that level of technology. What we can do in terms of imagery, documenting human rights abuses, environmental problems, Fortune 500 companies are already using this technology to see if company warehouses have enough trucks to justify the commerce they claim they're doing. That's how advanced this is becoming. So we need to catch up. You know, part of the problem is that the bad guys went international a long time ago. We, the good guys, need to catch up. So GIJN is trying to help on this. Here's a look at the satellite guide. Yeah. We have an active YouTube channel. We've done several series of how-to videos where we interview the best in the business on data, on verification, on fact-checking, on different kinds of forensic investigative techniques, and this is all for free. There's no password. This is available to anybody. And the Resource Center is now in 6 languages, I think, and we're working on more. Yeah.
8 languages.
Yeah. Okay, there it is, right for us. Okay, there it is, GIJN.org about right for us. How am I doing, Tanya? Oh, that's the end of the show. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues now so we can leave plenty of time for questions. We're foundation funded mostly. We make some money from our conferences. We feel truly gratified to have a role in spreading and strengthening investigative journalism around the world. There's some pretty dark forces at work in the world where we really have our backs to the walls in so many countries. We're losing ground in Hungary, in Brazil, in the U.S. We're dealing with Trump and Brexit and a backlash that has reached the Philippines and China, and the list is so long. This is a bright spot, though. The journalists of the world want to do their job, and they want to be watchdogs. They want to work for a better world. They want to right wrongs. They really go back to the origins of modern muckraking, the beginnings of great investigative reporting of people like Ida Tarbell, who wrote the history of the Standard Oil 100 years ago when it was the largest corporation in the world and destroying the environment and killing its workers. That ethos is still with us today, and we see it everywhere we work, including in places where you think it'd be really hard to do this kind of work, like China or Zimbabwe or even Hungary. We have people fighting the good fight. Our job is to help them. So let me stop there. Alistair, did I introduce you enough? We call him our jack of all trades.
Speak the language, so I can't open the full screen. But my assistant will help. Okay, sorry, that's a language thing more than a technology thing. Yeah, so I'm going to try not to overlap with what Dave said. He's touched on some of the stuff that I'm going to touch on. Pretty much one of as Dave said, I joined GIJN primarily as a technical person assisting with websites and stuff. That role's expanded to now we are doing trainings for a number of organizations around the world. I mostly look at Africa and Europe, but I mean, we're looking to expand this role. I mean, the focus of that is to try and teach journalists the basics of some of the growing number of digital tools that are available to them. This is a fascinating area if you've got any interest in technology and in investigations. As you see, it's starting to see this massive pouring out of technologies. People are building new tools almost day by day. And so getting a grasp of that is kind of behind a lot of the training that we do. So just to quickly run you through it, and then I'll maybe give a very brief overview of the kind of stuff that we do touch on. But to premise that, to say I'm around till the end of the week, if anyone wants more details on some of the stuff that we do or more ideas, I'm happy to talk to you. So there's an ever-growing number of tools that are available to journalists. The problem is, and this is a mistake that journalists make a lot of the time, is that there's one tool that's going to solve your problem. It's going to find the person that you want, find the answers that you want. It's never the case. It's really a case of trying to find the right tool or the right combinations of tools that will find you the kind of information that you want. One of the things that I regularly in the trainings and the workshops that I do with people is I say, to give you a sense of what's available to journalists out there, there's a thing called OSINT framework. It's a website. This is a static version of it. What it does is it tracks a broad range, the developing range of tools that are available to journalists in a number of areas. So, for example, if you're looking to find people's email addresses, or you're looking to find people's home addresses or telephone numbers, or you're just looking up for information, social media information on people, it's a good place to start. I know Dave asked me about OSINT, the open source component of it at the moment, but it is becoming the phrase when we're looking at online investigations that people call it OSINT, or open source intelligence. I'm not going to go through the interactive version. This is just a screenshot of a fully interactive version where you can click your way through until you find the kind of tool that you're looking for. Well worth your time. As I said before, the problem that most people have is they need to find a combination of tools. I haven't got a slide in here, but typically I talk about the process around investigative journalism using digital tools is a multi-step process in which we initially start with the kind of information that you know about the person that you're investigating or the organization you're investigating, then working out what's the next step that you need to take to find the next piece of information, now going back, reviewing that, and finding the next step. It's a constant process. One tool is not going to find the person's email address and organization's investment portfolio and some of their offshore deals, but a combination of those tools will do it. And I'll touch on just a couple of them very briefly in a minute. So, as Dave says, GIJN does kind of a lot of our work is to surface a lot of the resources that are available to investigative journalists, and to find the kind of tools and guide people in the kind of tools that they can use. Dave's already mentioned this is a slightly different version of our resource center. We are working on revamping our resource center, which Dave mentioned earlier, which will be at the Hamburg conference. We'll be showing that off. We also have the help desk. If you don't find what you want in the resource center, you can get hold of us. We can point you to one of our many experts. We also, as Dave said, I'm not going to repeat, tip sheets from the various conferences. It's always a great resource. And then we have a number of regular features, like I write a column, for example, called the toolbox, in which we look at a range of tools that are current at the time. We do that on a semi-monthly basis, depending on Tanya. In Toolbox is really an opportunity for me to kind of look at what's going on in the open source intelligence world and highlight 4 or 5 tools and what they would be used for. There's a series there you can go and look at. So just in terms of training people, normally I would do an hour, 2 hours, or a multi-hour kind of workshop on some of these tools. So some of these are going to be very sketchy. If you want some of the resources after the fact, let me know, and I can try and get them to you. So we look at a range of areas. Particularly, we start with security for journalists. I think security is a key component which people often overlook. You're investigating. Actually, I was speaking with Maj in a conference in Istanbul a while back, and I did kind of an hour and a half talking about how you could find out information about other people. And at the end, somebody in the front put up their hand and said, But if you can find that about somebody else, can they find out the same about you? And it's true. I mean, I think journalists need to be hyper-vigilant about their own security and understand that what you can see about somebody else, they can possibly see about you. Some of the tools we would look at are things like Onion Share, which is a way of securely sharing files between perhaps yourself and a source or multiple people. Onion Share is a Tor-based. If you know what the Tor network is, it's an encrypted network, and the documentation that you share between yourself and a source is never actually hosted on a third-party server. It's just shared from one person to another. It's kind of like peer-to-peer sharing, but highly secure, good for journalists. We also look at things like password managers. I think it's something that GIJN is investigating very seriously at the moment. I think it's very critical for any organization that's working, especially multinational organizations or working in multiple areas. We use things like Signal and Outline, which is a VPN, but we would get into detail on that. Also, techniques around doing your investigations. It's all well and good doing online investigations, but how many times have you found a piece of information, not realized it's important until 2 days later, you suddenly realize you've seen that before and you forgot where you found it. Documenting your work as you go is a critical part of online investigations. And using things like Document Cloud and my current favorite, Hunchly, which is not free, but it's a fantastic tool, is a way of tracking your investigations online. We go into that kind of work. We then run through a range of, as I said, there's different kinds of tools depending on who you are looking for. If you're looking for corporations or executive offices from corporations, you probably want to look at Open Corporate. Sorry, the link is blue. I obviously looked at it earlier. We also look at tools, for example, for tracking cell phone usage, where cell phones are in the world. One of the things that a lot of the tools that are emerging in the investigative journalism space are oftentimes not meant as investigative tools per se, but are developed for industry needs, but turn out to be fantastically useful. HLR lookups is the one I often point to, which is a tool which was developed for the networks to monitor where their cell phones on their networks were at any point in time. Essentially, they therefore maintain a database of all cell phones in the world and in which networks they're on in which countries. For investigative journalism, that's an enormous resource if you can see a phone that's left the country or switched to a different network. We do a lot around social media searching, things like People Find Thor. I don't want to get into all the detail because we've got a lot of time. I want to make it a bit of time for questions if people have those. As Dave already has pointed out, I think we do a lot around maps and trackers. He mentioned shipping. One of my favorites is tracking planes. There's some fantastic tools out there. We've done some good resources with that.
Can you share that real quick? You got a link to it?
Perhaps, I'll find it in a second. I'll find it in a second. A good case in point, I was doing a workshop a few weeks ago. One of the things we were able to find is if you know the Ethiopian airline that crashed and then all the planes were subsequently withdrawn, we could still track at one point as the planes were being redeployed for storage in outlying areas and cheaper airports. So, but there's a range of tools, ways that you can use those. We do a lot with maps, and as Dave said, we've got a satellite resource. We've got resources in a lot of the key kind of investigative areas on the website. The satellite imagery one is particularly good and particularly popular. This is normally a 2-hour kind of thing, so I'm rushing through. And then finding and verifying video, I think these are important areas, increasingly important areas. There's some fantastic tools out there like the Amnesty International YouTube Data Viewer, which can do reverse lookups on videos and find kind of images within that. And there's some good case studies done by Bellingcat and others where they've used these kinds of tools to kind of track the origins of a video, which in many cases is proved as propaganda for one organization, which is not actually legitimately, it wasn't necessarily the case in the beginning. But I mean, I can go through these and I can talk about any of these. I think the key thing that GIJN does at this point is that we keep a constant eye on the kind of emerging technologies in this space and how people are using them and how people can piece those together into a kind of putting the jigsaw puzzle together, for lack of a better phrase. And we do that on an ongoing basis, and then increase as we roll out the new resource center. I think that will become even more functional for people, a better way to find the tools that you need. I've probably said more than I should at this point, but
We'll come back.
We'll come back if there's questions afterwards.
Alistair does a regular column for us called the GIJN toolbox, which is one of our most popular features. We also do top 10 DDJ. I don't know if you've seen that on Twitter, where we map the most popular tweets that use the hashtag DDJ, and these are well read within the data journalism community. But we have other ways that we're trying to track the latest forensic tools. If police detectives and intelligence officers and corporate researchers are using tools, we want to know about them and we want to get them to you. That's part of our job. One of the, you know, I was fortunate to have a great career in journalism. For 30 years I got to do projects, and when I was trying to figure out how to give back to the community that had helped me in so many ways, you know, I had to put on a slightly different hat. Our entire staff are well, not pretty much everybody is a former or current journalist, and we still think of ourselves that way. But we're organizers now. And our job of organizing is investigative journalists, which is not the easiest group to organize. One of the key things is social media. We start with Twitter and Facebook, and we build networks from there. We don't tweet because we like Twitter. We tweet because we use it as an organizing tool. And we could see what happened when we branched into different languages. We started with Spanish and then Chinese, and then we had Arabic. Hello, David. Good to see you. And then we branched into Portuguese and Bengali, now called Bangla. We're in French, and we're in 8 languages now, and our goal is actually to get into 20. And we could see what a difference it makes. It's not good enough to just be in English. We're reaching people who have never seen these kind of tools before. And you can almost see the light bulbs going off over their heads online. It's pretty amazing what's going on. One of our stars is Maj here, who, you know, we created this position. We called them regional editors, and we didn't really know what they did. We just knew, okay, Maj, here's the Middle East and North Africa. Go organize it and help investigative journalists in the MENA region. Well, Maj and our other editors have done an amazing job. They're more than editors, they're our regional representatives. So she's going to talk about how she's used our skill set to strengthen investigative reporting in the region, and how our other regional editors do it.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming here, and thank you for having me. Today, I want to talk more technically about how GIJN could successfully use our social media platforms to publish daily feeds and news in 8 languages, covering 5 regions. This work done by 7 regional editors. Actually, our work based on 7 factors. We do them on daily basis. First one is aggregation and research, and social media presence. We do kind of outreach and networking, translation and writing, help desk responses and queries, conference and speaking, and last thing, we do kind of personal or regional projects. I'll talk about each of them in details now. First of all, we do kind of aggregation and research. It's something like, I consider it as a breakfast meal. Everybody can function well without having their breakfast. Same happened to us as the regional editors and GIJN staffers. Every day we bring all the latest news and investigative stories, tips and tools from all over the world and put it in one sheet. Every regional editor bring what happened in the region and put it, in this global sheet, and take what's happening globally and just display it in their own language. Actually, we do kind of knowledge rotating, because we take something from our region and put it globally, and take things from global feeds and display it regionally. We used the aggregation content for multiple things. We use it as a translation content and materials, feeding our social media platforms, and also launching some special project. I'll talk about it later. Our main core.
Do you want this to display?
I think just it has, yeah.
Don't know how
Yeah,
to.
just, it's okay, can just, Yeah, actually our core work is just, doing kind of social media presence, because, we are now in 7 languages, on Facebook, Twitter, Telegram, and WeChat, YouTube, and Telegram, and WhatsApp. And actually, let me tell you something. We don't deal with our social media platform as a sharing and posting tool. It's way beyond than that, because we consider it as a tool of building communities, exploring our region, exploring our regional and community needs, mentoring the talented people, the talented organizations, work with them, collaborate with them. We could, for example, if I want to talk about my experience as a Arabic regional editor, so far we have on both Facebook and Twitter more than 12,000 followers. We mentor actually hundreds of them, know them personally, know their portfolios and their progress. So when afterwards we want just to do content for them or design special content for them, we know how to do that, because we with them, from the beginning at the first place. And let me tell you something. Our social media platform, it's non-stop learning service. We don't stop during the weekend, during the holidays. Every day we have something new to show. Also, I consider social media presence for me as a regional editor a great tool to fight anti-press policies. For example, last day, a Syrian journalist, she wanted to apply to international awards, and she told me that she cannot get access to our website, and I realized that our website is banned in Syrian. So she could, reach us through social media, and she could have the opportunity to explore the latest tips and tools and knowledge in investigative reporting. Other thing we do, actually, we do kind of amazing networking, me and my other peers, and outreach. And we consider ourselves, puzzle solvers. When you are very familiar with puzzle game, you can, put everything in order in one place and easily. So actually, our secret beyond our, this successful experiences, because all our regional editor work, previously for years in the local media outlets in their own regions. So they know the challenges, the obstacles, the needs. So also when they want to reach out and do kind of networking, they actually know exactly what a journalist in Jordan or in Egypt or in China need. Our networking effort, make our followers and audiences feel that we are, as a sense of community, our invisible membership model. So every day we get, great feedback from our audiences telling that they feel that, GIJN Arabic, represents them to the international world and in the international macracking community. We do that also continuously, and it's non-stop effort. Actually, something else we do it. We do translation and writing. Let me tell you something. I never realized the value of translation from language to another language before we start working with GIJN. At our early stages in GIJN Arabic, we just wanted to give priority to Arabic content, and actually I struggled because I couldn't find anything. And I think our audience struggled too, because it's very frustrating when they open something and find, the genuine link in English. That's afterwards, GIJN puts more resources and, support, kind of more translation, and we start, offering now daily translation, and for our resources, our original articles. We have them, for example, the toolbox, GIJN toolbox, we usually publish it in 7 languages: Arabic, English, Russian, Portuguese, French, Bangla. Also, another thing we are just doing, I don't know, Dave told, mentioned it before, the queries and help desk. Queries, every day we respond to Arab journalists in my region. Let me say about my region. We listen to journalists, and we respond to media organizations. We connect them with each other. We help them, in reporting and just networking, distribution. And in GIJN Arabic, we create something, we call it follow up the query, because we realize it's not enough just to respond journalists. In some cases, you can follow up with him to make sure that he's satisfied. It's something like customer service, but we are not marketers, actually. We're not, but it's just, as a journalist, we deserve to help each other and, to serve each other and to use, the available resources to be supportive and positive. So last year, GIJN Arabic served and helped 170 journalists from across MENA region in the things like reporting and networking and distribution and other stuff. Last thing I want to mention here, it's not last thing, I want to talk about something we created recently, because we knew our, that our region lack of, resources and, genuine Arabic materials. So we start publishing something, we call it Daily McCracker. The Daily McCracker is mini guide. We publish it on daily basis, have the latest tips, tools, investigative stories in Arabic language. We usually do it 5 days in a week. And also, under another stuff that GIJN does, it just gives space for their regional editors to launch kind of regional projects based on the priorities they figure out during their work. So last year also we do kind of a human trafficking fellowship. We launched it in the Gulf because we realized that Gulf is just empty area. They never, practice or do investigative reporting. And we had successfully some stories published in The Guardian and Receive 21 and other Arabic media outlets. Last thing we do conferences, and we speaking frequently. If you go to any conference, in investigative journalism, you should find some of our regional editors there, because we find that a great way to interact and to contact with our community in person. And also in the conference thing, we usually support our partners in their conferences. For example, at a REACH conference, we did a workshop in sustainability, and this workshop followed with another webinar in the same topic. We also supported, the Arab Data Journalism Conference, by granting the first 2 winners 2 fellowships to attend our conference in Hamburg next September. For now, I'm just want to just finish my talk. If anybody have any question, I'm ready to answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Maj. So that's who we are. We're doing this not only in Arabic, but in Russian and in Chinese, in French, particularly in West Africa, and we're seeing real impact through the data we get through our help desk, through our conference surveys. Journalists are telling us what they want more of, and we're doing our best to do that and to strengthen these connections and networks around the world. We do that through social media, through publishing, through our conferences and workshops, through networking, through our help desk, through our resource center. So all this stuff is beginning to work. We're not that old. We started in 2012, and we're really starting to see things start to happen. So why don't we open it up for questions, and you can follow us at GIJN on Twitter, and that'll lead you to everything else, or go to GIJN.org to our website. Any questions? Room full of journalists and no questions. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Oh.
How do you help journalists who are, I know this is often the case in Western Europe, investigative journalists who are facing the threat of lawsuit that is so big that their media houses try to hold them back because that might actually lead to a bankruptcy. So is there any way to help these journalists?
We work with a group that's actually represented here based in London, the Media Legal Defense Initiative, and they have pro bono attorneys all over the world that are willing to take on cases. So it's one of the reasons we're effective is we stay in our lane, which is investigative journalism. So if there's a serious journalist in danger, we get the Committee to Protect Journalists or Reporters Sans Frontières involved. They're 5 times larger than we are. They have a lot more resources, and that's what they do full time. We don't want to get involved, but we'll stop what we're doing, and if you're in legal trouble, we'll get you a referral. Yeah. Are you in legal trouble? Yes, sir. Oh, you're the staff guy. Sorry. Question? Okay, Alistair, what else you want to talk about? We got a few more minutes. Let's not waste it. Show them some cool stuff.
I think I was in the background. No, I mean, there's just a range of tools. I mean, something like this. You asked about the plane tracker, for example, and I mean, this is like an example of one of the amazing tools out there that are kind of have a range of official sources and a range of semi-official sources. Flight radar works off a process where they have official flight tracking data as well as a range of kind of geeks that are prepared to put a tracker in their backyard and track planes going overhead. There's these, I mean, I picked on a plane down here, for example, that, because I'm from Johannesburg, South Africa, that's a Singapore Airlines flight leaving Johannesburg a short while ago, just before we started talking. There's a range of other tools like the Marine Tracker, which does a very similar job of tracking boats, particularly large like container vessels around the world. There's a range of other tools that can be, again, coming back to the combination of tools. There's ways of tracking containers. Every container in the world has a unique ID. If you know enough about who owns that container, where it's been moving in the world, and potentially lead to what's been offloaded by those things. And there's good case studies of people tracking those around the world and realizing, you know, the contents thereof may not be drugs, but they turned out to be the ingredients for drugs. So these are the kinds of things that we would talk about, that we would introduce people to, give the space to kind of people to work with them and see what they can find.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have a sort of a hit list on these tools? What is being used the most and where and how? So you get that feeling that you're not going out in virgin land, but this has actually been used by these and these and those. This is, for instance, a very good picture showing where the CO2, where the big sinners are.
Okay, I'll answer this very quickly. I don't have a top 40 kind of list per se, but I mean, in the toolbox, I talk about the things that I think are very popular and that do actually work. If you look at this, if you look, for example, at a site like Bellingcat, for example, they do some excellent documentation work on the tools that they have used from Google Earth, using satellite imagery, the kinds of tools that they actually use. We can reference that. I mean, there's a number of sites out there that do that. Again, it comes to finding the right one, depending on what it is that you're looking for.
Data tools tend to be the hottest pages on our site. Data journalism is so hot right now. People are looking at everything from basic spreadsheet use to advanced database analysis, and so those do well. But I'll tell you, the most popular page in our resource center, what do you think it is? Grants and fellowships. By far.
Yeah.
It's a very, Alistair, can you show that? It is our most popular page. Listen, we offer fellowships to our global conference to journalists from the global south, from developing and transitioning countries. So if that's you, go to our conference site or GIJN.org and look for fellowships. We got time for one more question, I think.
No, I think we're done. A man in the front says we're done.
We don't have time. Wait a minute, my clock says 1 to 6. Yours doesn't? Okay, were you trying to show something? Or should
I showed it very quickly, yeah. But I think we've been told to.
We've lost our Wi-Fi. This is like Hungary.
Okay.
Okay, I guess we're done. Thank you so much, everybody.